Today we're going to focus on multiplying by fractions, and we're only going to do whole numbers today. So 5 being a whole number is not a fraction. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or vice versa. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. 5 times 1/6. Now, that just means adding 1/6 5 times. So we're going to take 1/6 and we're going to add it 5 times. So we're starting at 0, 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, 4 6, 5 6. And notice what happened. We actually just took the 5 and multiplied by the 1 to get the 5 on top, which was our answer. And we're going to see a similar pattern in the upcoming examples. But basically why that is because we had a 6 1/6 and we multiplied it 5 times. So here's 1/6 and we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's look at another visual example. Let's take the number 2 and multiply by 3/4. So we're going to take 3/4 and we're going to add that twice. There's 1 3/4 and there's another hop, another 3/4, which is 6/4. And notice again we had a similar phenomenon. We took the true and we multiplied by the 3 to get the 6 on top. In other words, we landed at 6/4. And why is that? Because we had the 3/4 and we added it twice, 1, 2, to end up with the 6/4. So hopefully you can begin to see the visual reason of what's going on when you multiply a whole number by a fraction. Alright, now let's do 3 times -4/10. Now I know that's not a simplified fraction, but for the sake of the example, we're going to leave it that way. Now let's see if it works out the same. So -4/10, if we add that 3 times, we have to go to the left, obviously, so that's -4/10. Hop again, -8/10, that's twice, and then 3 times we end up at -12/10. So as you can see, all you're actually doing is taking the whole number and multiplying by the numerator to get a new numerator. The denominator stays the same. And again, that's because the numerator is just the piece of the whole, and if you're adding that 3 times or whatever, you end up with the new numerator, or the new part to the whole, piece to the whole. In general, what we're doing is we're starting with A, and if we multiply that by AB, we multiply the numerator, the whole number, by the numerator to get the new numerator. So therefore A times BC is equal to AB over C. Pretty simple, right? We're doing this lesson because it gets a little bit more complicated when you multiply two fractions together, and I wanted you to see a whole number times a fraction. For example, if you were helping your mom cook, or your dad, or whoever, and you had, say you had 2/3 cups of milk, and you had to add that 4 times. It'd be 4 times 2/3, and you'd have 8/3 cups of milk. So there's kind of a practical example of why we would multiply a whole number by a fraction. Alright, so knowing that rule now, what would be 4 times -3/2? And I'm going to give you some real quick and easy steps. First thing you're going to do is just go ahead and multiply. So we're going to do the 4 times the -3. So in other words, multiply the whole number by the numerator, and then next we're going to simplify. It's going to change because obviously we're going to look at some variable numbers. So 4 times -3, that's going to give you a -12 on top. And then to simplify that, -12/2 is -6. Therefore, 4 times -3/2 is -6. Real simple. Multiply and then simplify. In other words, multiply the whole number by the numerator and then simplify. Alright, how about, let's read this one together. 2 times x/3. How would we simplify that? Well, first, we're going to multiply the whole number by the numerator, so it's going to be 2 times x. And then to simplify that, it just becomes 2x, and that's all we can do, right? We can't simplify really 2x/3 anymore unless we run it. You could actually also write it as 2/3 x. I just realized that, but you don't really have to do that. So either one is correct, and therefore the answer is 2x/3. Okay, so again, multiply and simplify. Let's look at some more examples. How about y times -7/4? Well, by now you should be able to see that what you're doing is multiplying the whole number by the numerator. So now we're going to have y times negative 7. And remember, the order in which you multiply numbers doesn't matter, so we can actually switch those and put the negative 7 out front. And then we don't need the multiplication sign if it's a number followed by a variable. So therefore you have negative 7y on top and 4 on the bottom. And that's what's going to go inside the box. When we simplify y times negative 7 over 4, we get negative 7y over 4. And yeah, you can pull the negative out front for the fraction. Let's look at some more examples. Square root of 5 times 2 over r. Alright, first thing we're going to do is multiply the whole number by the numerator. So now we have square root of 5 times 2. And I don't know if you knew this or not, we've probably talked about it before, but when you have a square root and a whole number, the whole number comes first. And you don't have to put the multiplication sign between the whole number and the square root. You can just, because it implies it's multiplying. So that top part is 2 square root of 5, and then we have r on the bottom. So therefore, when we simplify square root of 5 times 2 over r, we end up with 2 square root of 5 over r. Alright, how about this one? We have 7 times pi over 4. Okay, again, what we want to look at immediately is we're going to take the whole number and multiply it by the numerator. So we're going to have 7 times pi on top and 4 on the bottom. And 7 times pi is just 7 pi. And then the bottom stays the same. This is kind of example you would see on, let's say, the unit circle, which is something you will learn in the future. So final answer, 7 pi over 4. Okay, let's read this one together. We have xy times 3.2 over z. So even though xy is more than just a whole number, it's still an expression. So we're taking whatever that is and multiplying by the numerator. So now we have xy times 3.2, bottom stays the same. And since it's a whole number, it can come first, so it needs to move out to the front. And then it becomes 3.2 xy on the top. So the point of this one was just to show it doesn't matter what, let's use a different color, it doesn't matter what's over here, you're still just multiplying the numerator. Final answer, 3.2 xy over z. Okay, kind of threw this one out even though it should be pretty obvious after you look at it a second. 0 times 3xy over 7ab. Now yes, you could multiply the numerator and then divide 0 over 7ab, which gives you 0, but think about this. The easiest way to think about this problem is 0 times anything is what? It's 0, right? So yes, you could work it out that way, the normal steps that we just looked at, but 0 times anything is 0. So sometimes when two lessons collide, you want to employ the simplest method possible. In this case, 0 times anything is 0. So that's whole numbers times fractions, and it's simple. A times b over c gives you ab over c.